welcome to another episode of Cranes and All, and with me is Scott McLeod. And Scott, welcome to our little show.
Thank you.
And we're at Scott's yard here in Mt Maunganui, and I can see one or two cranes. So what we're going to do is we'll start with the smallest one. And this is Little Toot.
Yes.
What a great name. Little Toot with the tugboat, I think, wasn't it? A sort of very brave little tugboat.
Yeah, this is the second version of Little Toot, but yeah, it was named by my dad, and it's been they're amazing crane.
So what does this do? I mean, what sort of job would you get this on?
So the key with this crane, it's really light on its feet, on its tyres, so it's not a crane that breaks footpaths and driveways.
Yep.
So it's like the perfect crane for residential work, and it's got a really small form factor, so you can get it up and into driveways and lift in things like spa pools or residential work like people's rocks, or for garden sort of, and swimming pools, and then frames and trusses and that sort of thing in the building industry. So it's a pretty clever little crane, good for down alleyways and that sort of thing.
And it drives along the road from the cab, so everything.
Yeah.
So the engine of the machine drives the crane part.
Yeah,
as well.
it gets along the road at about 55 kilometres an hour, I think, downhill, wind behind, and it does, and just drives to the site, and one man runs it, and they set up and look after the customer. As great, it's, as Pete was saying, 23 metres, I think, a boom. So
now it's sloped when it's down. It's sloped for a reason.
Yeah. So this, when the crane packs up like this with the boom at a negative angle, they typically call it a city crane.
Oh, okay.
And so this particular style of crane is a city crane. So. And it just makes greater visibility for the driver when operating in the city environment. He can see out this side a lot easier, and get a bit of an idea of where people are on the road around him.
I just see he's got a mirror on a stick and another one, but I just remember the great big logging trucks, those big Pacific logging trucks, they had a mirrors sort of sitting on a mud going way the hell out in the front there.
These mirrors, not only on a stick, they're on a motor as well. So
really?
From in the cab, you can push a button and it'll hydraulic, it'll turn itself out of the way. So, so if he's going in, a lot of driveways are narrow and trees and things, and he can, without having to jump out, he can push a button and move it out of the way.
That's
so pretty clever.
Pretty clever machine, all right.
The Kato and Tadano make this sort of city crane machines, and just really clever how they've become over the years.
So this hook is tucked up under there, I guess that's hydraulic as well.
Just on the winch actually, so as he packs up, as he lowers the boom, the winch pulls up against the boom and itself folds away. It's quite clever how it packs up. In the past we used to hook them onto the front bumper, and it was a real skill to lower the boom and winch up at the same time to lower the boom into the cradle. But now now as technology's changed, they self-pack up, which is pretty clever.
Yeah. So not much to look at, but very, very clever.
Yeah, brilliant machine. This cranes. It's a 1994 Tadano. It's a 20 tonner, so the crane before was a 13. There's a 20, but it's quite a unique crane. It's a rough terrain crane, so you can see the boom is not at the negative angle, it's straight out the front. And this has quite a unique, for the size crane it is, it has 31 metres of main boom. So it's a lot of boom for a little crane, but it's very heavy. It's roughly 24 tonnes, so about 12 tonne an axle. So unfortunately, unlike the other crane, this one can break curbs and can break footpaths and stuff. So it's one that the driver's got to be constantly thinking. And it has a different style of legs on it actually. It's got scissor legs.
Oh yes, we've heard it. They do this.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Where this one over here just has normal legs, H style legs.
I'm just looking at the the wire ropes, and talking to previous people, that the more times it goes around these runners, the bigger the lift you can lift.
Yeah, so you can see on the main hook, it's got 4 parts of line, and
Yep.
on the single hook we've just got the 1 part of line. So as you increase the number of parts of line, you multiply the lifting capacity. So if that little, I'm not too sure what the little hook on this one has, but if it was 3 ton for 1 part of line, it would be 4 times 3 at 12 ton.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For
Right.
4 parts of line.
Yeah. So what's the crane called?
This one doesn't have a name.
It's a Tadano,
yeah,
or
just
or
a Tadano.
oh,
It's just a 20.
1994.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we haven't.
So these things don't wear out.
They do, and I don't know why this one's managed to stay corrosion free in that. It's a bit of a mystery to me, but it's been an amazing machine, and yeah, really cool. And obviously the guys look after it, but yeah, it's stayed in awesome condition.
Wow. And the driver's got to take it. This one does 55s. This one goes slower.
No, he's similar in speed, but he's a bit more bouncy, and the engine's a bit a bit louder, and but yeah, similar speeds. He's quite a beast going down the road, but because of this huge overhang, he's got to be quite switched on. You can see he's got extra mirrors.
Oh yes, up there. Yeah.
Up there to try and increase his visibility as much as possible. He's a lot harder to drive because of such a huge front overhang.
Yes, you wouldn't want to go running up the back of a bus or something, would you? No.
No, and just pulling out from an intersection, if you imagine he's not close to the intersection, he's a long way back. So his visibility is quite different, and it's a real skill. And because it's so heavy on the road, there's a thing in cranes, you want to get as much dunnage on the ground to stop you from sinking into the ground. But the more dunnage you put on the crane, the heavier the crane. So there's a compromise that you have to try and get as much dunnage or equipment to stop you sinking into the ground.
Wow.
And so this one here, because he's so heavy, he can't carry much dunnage, and so with that, the crane driver has just got to be really switched on.
Right, I see it's 4-wheel drive. Yes.
4-wheel steer.
And the whole 4 steer.
Yeah, all crabbing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. A really cool machine from that side. When they get into that and they throw it into a 4-wheel steer, they can go into some really small spaces, and then obviously when you're manoeuvring on site, you can put the boom up out of the way,
Which makes you smaller still.
yeah, and just manoeuvre that part, I guess, into the spot.
Yeah.
And then with that 31 metres of boom on this machine, the reach is just incredible what you can do in one setup without, like these other cranes, you've got to put a fly jib on. This one doesn't have a fly jib, so pretty neat. Yeah.
I see the hook gets folded away, and how does he get that up?
Yeah. So obviously, as it is now, when the boom's up, that's just hanging in that position. So as he's lowering the boom and winching out, he can keep the hook above the deck and keep it roughly level.
Right,
So he doesn't have to lift it. It would be hanging normal.
Can you get a modern version of this? I mean, this is 1994. Is that they still make them in sort of 2020, 21, 22?
Yes, so that's one of our problems. There are cranes like the next one we'll probably have a look at.
Yep.
But they're not as grunty, I guess, lift capacity and as much boom as this. We're struggling to find a machine of a similar ability. Like cranes are really good at lifting things in, but one day you might have to lift them back out, and you still want to have that ability without getting rid of that ability. And this crane over the years would have lifted in a lot of things. And my dad, who was the previous owner, obviously McLeod Crane family, multi-generational business, it worries me if I move this crane on, what did he lift in? in his day, and I might have to lift it back out one day. So I'm like, we need to hold on to it. We don't.
Yeah, yeah. An oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, brilliant crane. Yeah.
Tadano have been building cranes since 1956. Tadano is the name in mobile cranes, from 2-axle to 7-axle cranes, as well as track cranes. Tadano, a great choice of crane. So if you're looking for a crane, why not choose Tadano? Tried and true. To find out more, just go to allcrane.co.nz. With me is Tim Elliott from Kepler Motors in Hamilton, and good on you, Tim. Maybe tell us a little bit about the vehicles you sell.
Right, well, we've got an absolutely amazing range from the GWM Haval product lineup. We start with a small SUV with the Jolian, and we start from that at $27,990 plus on-road costs. We then go through that range. We have 3 models in the Jolian range. We then go into the H6, which is the next size up, your mid-size SUV, and that we actually have 5 models in that range.
Wow.
Yeah, starting from $33,990.
Yeah.
So when you look at the value for money in our range, and we even have right through to a hybrid like our new car behind me here. As well as the SUVs, we have a stunning lineup of the GWM Cannon, which is New Zealand Autocar Magazine's Ute of the Year for 2020.
Wow.
Not only has it come up Ute of the Year because of its build quality, ride quality and safety, now 5-star safety rating in 2021, it is an absolutely amazing package. You don't get the harsh ride that you traditionally get in a ute, but you get all the safety and benefit of having 3-ton towing capacity, up to a ton payload in the back, but also room for your guests in the back of the vehicle if you're taking a few along with you.
With a bit of legroom.
With a bit of legroom and vents in the back so they have actually get a bit of fresh air as well.
Oh, that's marvellous. Get hold of Tim and I'm sure he'll look after you.
Look forward to hearing from you.
Fassi, an extraordinary crane. So if you need a crane fitted to your truck, either behind the cab or on the back, then Fassi is the crane you need. Fassi can load your truck and trailer as well as unload them. A versatile crane that saves time and money. So to find out about getting your Fassi crane, just call All Crane on 0800 All Crane or check out their webpage at www.allcrane.co.nz. When the man turns up who drives this is his responsibility. He's got to check it first thing in the morning and last thing at night after it's all done, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. So when he arrives at work for us, he'll do a fit for duty and make sure that that he's had a good night's sleep and that he's ready to take on the task of the day and no injuries and that sort. And then he comes to the machine and he'll do a pre-start and he'll walk around the machine and check all the machine's oil levels and water levels and tyre pressures and and check all that the crane is in good condition and that there's nothing that he can see that's not right. And he'll do that out. These are electronic forms nowadays, and
so he's done it on his iPad or his iPhone.
Just on his iPhone, yeah. And then and his job comes through on his iPhone as well now. Tells him where he's off to and what he's doing, and then away he goes.
When I used to drive trucks for Prescott's Transport up at Tairua, up the coast there, you left in the morning, and when you got to where you were going, they come out, one of the bikes, I just had a call from your boss and he wants to do this. Or else you fill up at the fueling station in Papakura, and the guy come out with a note, this is from your boss. So suddenly you're off to Paira or off to somewhere else. The communication was a bit slack in those days, but today, iPhone.
Yep. So when I learned, I was dispatched with, I had a cell phone, I was dispatching to the guys over cell phone, and they'd ring me at the end of each job, and it was really cool because you had a good relationship with the guys. But now now it's all electronic and it comes through as a job on a phone, which tells them what to do and where to go.
Right. So I'm just looking at the wire rope. I mean, that's a pretty important aspect of cranes. And do you have much problem with wire rope? I mean, one of these things breaks off or something. You got a
so they're annually inspected. We do have a few issues at different times with wire ropes. it's really important to follow the manufacturer's guidelines on the type of rope that you put on and the lay of the rope. You know, they have right-hand Lang's lay and left-hand Lang's lay, quite technical. And then obviously maintaining and greasing the wire rope. We have a workshop of 10 guys who look after this fleet, and that's something they're keeping an eye on as well. So
yeah, it's interesting, but this has got that same sort of pull it up tight, tucks away, perfect.
Really good, but interesting, not as good as that crane. So this is a 20 tonner as well, so it's only got 25 metres of boom, city crane, but its lifting capacity compared to the Tadano beside it is quite different. So if the job required capacity and boom length, we'd probably send the Tadano to get into the job, where the city cranes has a slightly lesser capacity. So don't know why, they're just different design philosophies, and it's not. It doesn't always happen that way. This is a Kato and that's Tadano. It could be the other way as well, but it's just quite a clever. Again, this one's easier to drive on the road. Negative boom angle, great visibility. So
has this got the scissor?
No, this is the normal H legs. So a lot more traditional compared to the crane next to it. So, but similar capacities, just different designs.
Sure. I just note there's a couple of tubes. I guess that's hydraulic, is it?
Yeah. So this one has a hydraulic luffing fly jib, which is quite neat. So we can put the boom up and then hydraulically luff the fly jib down over the building to get access to wherever we're working. It's quite a neat
addition.
Yeah.
That's
and because of its small form factor, the little crane as well over here, the 13, it has some of those abilities as well. So
DMACC stands for uncompromising quality. As one of the world's leading manufacturers of high performance and reliable industrial cranes, crane components and drives, we offer our customers a comprehensive range of smart solutions for their material flow and logistic needs. Our name is synonymous with maximum safety, reliability and innovation. We provide our customers with smooth processes, maximum efficiency and best results. So, want to find out more? Just call All Crane on 0800 All Crane or check out their webpage www.allcrane.co.nz. The Gecko Mini Crane, without riggers, designed to get into small areas and confined places like stairs, passageways, things like that. Because they don't have a huge setup time, this saves money and time. Gecko, the crane that does all those little jobs in tight places. For more information, check out www.allcrane.co.nz. With me is Peter McLeod, and Peter, you've worked on some enormous cranes, I hear, and this is called a Saipem, Saipem 7000. It's on a ship, and there's two of them, and I understand each one of them can lift 7,000 tonne.
Yeah, so when I went to the UK, I was working for the London Underground, and the guys I was working with were all ex-offshore engineers, and then one way or another I ended up involved on a project team that was looking after the lifts for this vessel. So it's a semi-submersible crane vessel, and each crane can lift. It's got two cranes mounted on the bow, and each one lifts 7,000 tonnes.
So when you say semi-commercial, that means it can sort of be right at water level, and the rest of the ship is under the water, sort of.
Yeah. So this thing's 200 metres long and 80 metres wide. They had to make it in two different dry docks, and then they floated both halves out and then connected it together.
Wow.
And so it's 40 metres from the deck to the underside. And when it's travelling, it's got a draft of about 10 metres, so there's 30 metres above the water level, which is pretty high when you're standing on there, when you think you probably need an 80-tonne mobile to lift onto the deck.
Yes.
But when it's doing a big lift, it'll be 30 metres underwater and about 10 metres above the water level. level.
So being under, does that count as some of the weight? This sort of?
Yeah, so it's full of water when you're doing a heavy lift, and it's got a rapid ballast system, so it can, you might, say you're doing a 10,000 ton lift, you'll probably take up 5,000 tons on the cranes, and then the rapid ballast system enables a bit of tilt as you're lifting as well, so that when they finish the last bit of the lift and combined with the tilt, they get some quite good clearances between the barge that they're trying to lift, whatever they're lifting off.
Yes.
So that the waves and things that are happening the barge doesn't come up and crush the underside of the vessel, or the item you're
That's
lifting.
very interesting, yeah, because you've got to take the waves into consideration when you're trying to keep the thing level. So
Yeah.
you've got all that mechanism underneath it to do that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great thinking.
Yeah.
So whoever thought of this must
Yeah.
have been
Each crane has 4 hooks, so the main hook is good for 7,000 tons. The first auxiliary is good for 4,500 tons. The second auxiliary is good for 900 tons, and the little whip line hook is good for 120 tons. And that little whip line can lift 120 tons at about 150 meters radius.
So what does that main hook weigh?
Well, yeah, the main hook with the block and the sheaves, and there's 96 parts of 64mm wire rope that is feeding down and up.
64. How big's that? 64.
Yeah. So it's like
As big as my wrist.
96 parts of that, and so all up that whole thing's weighing in the vicinity of 500 tons.
So you need a crane just to lift the hook.
Yeah. So here's a picture of that hook.
Wow.
And you can see I'm a bit further in front of the guys at the back there.
Yeah,
but these slings, those spreader bars can weigh 400 tons, and these slings might be 50 ton each. So it's not uncommon when you're doing a tandem lift of a offshore platform that you might have 500 odd ton of slings and spreader bars. Not to mention the hooks and the wire rope hanging from the main boom.
And not to mention whatever it is you're lifting.
Yeah.
That size of that wire, I mean, looking like that, it's like that where it's joined up.
Yeah.
So where are those slings made?
Germany, just different parts of Europe.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So
There's a few manufacturers that you
So
just
they make them and then ship them to you.
yeah. So when you're working out your project, that's part of the problem is working out how soon you can get the slings manufactured and
Wow.
to where you need them. Yeah. So some of the calculations we're doing also is the loadout of, they make these modules on this one is in Mexico, in a big fab yard, and then you've had to it's made on big skid beams, so there's engineering that goes into the skid beams, and then actually the loadout, the forces involved in jacking this thing out onto the barge, and making sure that all your lift points and your beams and the barge can all handle those forces, and not to mention the top side itself can handle those stresses.
Wow.
So that's the loadout, and then you have the transportation. So it'll be going from Mexico to this was into the Gulf of Mexico, so you've got the barge sort of pitch and yaw and roll and all of that, getting out to the field, and then you've got the lifting of it off the barge, and also the set down on the jacket. So there's lots of different load cases that you're sort of designing the different grillages and C fastenings and
So all
guides
this,
and
all this
bumpers.
is done in an office.
Yeah, most of it's done.
Do you
in
wear
an
a
office.
tie during that process?
What was that?
Do you wear a tie during this?
No, we didn't wear a tie, but it's a consulting engineering environment.
Okay.
So you've got a lot of draftsmen drawing. All these procedures are all drawn.
Wow.
Checking clearances, and then a lot of engineering, like I say, on those spreader beams and trunnions, and making sure that you got this 10,000 ton topside that you've got to put on a barge. You can't just put it anywhere on the barge, so you've got to make a lot of different grillages, they call them, support frames to put the topside on, so that barge doesn't fold in half.
Wow. So it's a hell of a lot of thinking got to go into this before you even get to
Yeah,
the stage.
yeah. So a big part of it also is working out centres of gravity and the tilt of these things, which a lot of those sorts of calculations we're doing here at McLeod's when we're getting into these complex lifts. So Scott mentioned earlier about when the lifts get more complex, a lot of that knowledge that I've gained from these sorts of jobs is really useful, even on a little 10-ton crane job, to be honest. You can get some tricky jobs, even on that size crane, that might need a bit more of a closer look.
Well, make it work, keep it safe.
Yeah.
So just as a question, when you put that jacket or the legs or whatever holding the oil rig up on the sea floor, is it bolted to the sea floor, or does it just sit there just by the weight?
Huge steel casings, so it's piled to the sea floor. So so once the jacket's set down, the next phase will be that we're using the cranes or the S7000 to lift some large diameter casings down through the legs of the jacket.
Yep.
Or in some cases they're lowered onto the seabed and through the feet. Like in this one, you can see there's the holes there, and then this is bottom driven. So we're driving like 20 metres into the seafloor till we find some.
So this is the base of this. And how many of these are there?
Well, this is, one of these will hold up one of those
Right.
top sides. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So this thing's being towed out to site on a barge. So this thing might weigh 3,500, 4,000 tonne. And it's so then they'll ballast. It's all fastened to the barge. All these special sea fastenings, and they've got Teflon pads on top of these skid beams. And then they'll ballast the barge till they get to their right angle, and then they jump up and they start cutting. Get the gas axe out and they start cutting the sea fastenings. And basically this thing just starts sliding. And it's all over pretty quickly. So the next thing is some screeching, and this thing just disappears down the barge
Into the water and on its way to the bottom.
Into the water. And once it hits the water, it pretty much disappears. But there's a whole lot of buoyancy tanks that are welded to the top of the jacket. So it rights itself with sufficient clearance underneath, so that it is, might be 10 metres above the seabed underneath, and now it's just floats there. And then now this S7000 can come along, and you can see the slings all ready to go, all secured on the top. Yep. We'll come and lift it and manoeuvre it over into the final position, and then let the air out of the tanks and put it on the bottom.
Wow. Now tell me about the shackles. I think Scott was telling me the shackles you could just about walk through.
Yeah, it's well, the first time I hopped on this thing, I was used to. Dad had 15 cranes, I think, and maybe 10 cranes, and the biggest one was an 80. No, 100. 130 was the biggest, and the biggest shackles we were dealing with were 25-ton shackles. But I saw this thing, and it's a 2,000-ton shackle. And it's as big as probably twice as big as this
Pile of wood.
But the interesting part was, so that on top of on the deck of this thing, they had a 90-ton crawler crane. So that thing would lift up the shackle, and then they had a 25-ton roughie that would drop the pin in,
And then they have to.
and then a team of guys would pick up the nut and screw that on. So that's unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. Good on you, Peter. Absolutely mind-blowing, as you said.